struck me as I was thinking about the past couple of Sundays. And this is an illustration of thinking big. If you remember Rich's talk. About 15 months ago, July of 2012, I had what I considered a transcendental experience. It was a really, really hot July day, and I was visiting a friend's farm just outside of Bassett, Virginia. And it was really hot, and I stripped down to my shorts, and I went wading into the shallow part. Let me show that picture, yeah. with Coco. But I mean, I was standing there in the middle of this rushing river with Coco, and I suddenly experienced oneness. The wind was rushing through the trees. The water was just washing by. Birds were serenading me. And you could hear an occasional laugh of a child somewhere upstream. And all of that blended into this amazing orchestra. And it sang to me. And it found its tempo in my heartbeat. I was one with everything. And I remember thinking, I want to experience oneness like this in water a lot. Yeah, big thoughts. But I was aware in that moment that the universe is in me. It is in all things. And that's really the second experience of my life that I'm aware of, right? I knew that oneness. The first was in Hemi Springs, New Mexico. I went to a spiritual retreat at a Buddhist retreat center. And we had a number of experiences, and one of those was a sweat lodge ceremony. Has anybody done a sweat lodge? I am really clear that that is not something that calls to me ever again. It's hot. It is uncomfortable. I did not have visions of white buffalo. My grandmother didn't come to me. It was just hot. And so I come out of the sweat lodge, and there's a creek. And so I get in this cold mountain stream because it feels so good. And I'm laying on a boulder, and I'm staring up into this beautiful cloudless sky. And I know I am one. I am one with everyone around me. I am one with the earth. I am one with the universe. So I know that feeling. And I crave that feeling. And back in July of 2012, I had this thought. I had this big thought. I want to experience this. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, my experience over the past few months with water has not been very peaceful. On June 25th, I was setting up for a workshop at my office. We were hosting daily practices for soulful living. Sandy, she's a friend of mine, she's a shaman, and she was leading us through a series of daily practices where you really get to know the divine is present in your life. And we're about getting ready to start, and one of my coworkers, Amy, walks up to me, she goes, "You need to go home." No, I don't. I'm staying for tonight's class. This is important to me. And Amy said, "No, you need to go home." Well, I know enough about Amy, and sometimes she's one of those energy type people that kind of weirds me out sometimes. So I go home. Okay. That Tuesday night was the first of several flash floods that we would experience here in Greensboro over the next 8 weeks. Before I dumped my phone into the flood waters, I successfully contacted one friend and screamed into the phone, "Please come help me." And I also captured this next picture, Chris. That's my sliding glass door in my kitchen. That's before I dumped my phone, so the water actually got deeper. And so, like I said, that was the first of several floods. And during the next flood that we had, I was spending a day frolicking in the ocean at Sunset Beach. And about the time I was enjoying my third or fourth cocktail, was it the beach? Richard here called me and said, it's raining really bad and there's water up to the doors. And so my beach trip ended early, and that's when I returned home to raise the vibration of the world by raising the vibration of my kitchen. If you remember Pat's talk about scrubbing pots and pans, I was scrubbing my kitchen clean. And throughout the unseasonably wet summer, I kept hearing people say to me over and over again, you need to build an ark. Have you started on your ark yet, Todd? And you know, it was funny the first 3 times. And then, you know, the dialogue in my head, sometimes I engage my filter. So I don't say, can you not see this is not funny? And what good would an ark do? So then, several floods later, we jump forward to July 21st. And on July 21st, I spoke here about the discovery process. I called that talk the discovery of innocence. And I reminded you all of that ancient law of, if you see something that needs to be done, it's probably yours to do. If I see that something needs to be done, it's probably mine to do. I talked about discovering our core values and taking action from a place of creativity and not taking action from a place of fear. And then, as I do every Sunday after I give a talk, I went home and went to bed. And just before 4 o'clock that afternoon, my smartphone, Holly, started making a horrible racket. Because I have an alarm on my phone when we have a special weather alert. And yes, that afternoon, we were having a flash flood. Chris, can you play my movie now? This is really short. It's only like 45 minutes. I hope. There we go. That's my backyard. This is me standing in my backyard. I stood there looking at my neighbor's backyard and I was thinking, that's like whitewater kayaking. And then I looked at my house and I had 3 sump pumps running and it was still 6 inches deep. And you know what I suddenly thought while I was standing there and brushing water? I need to build an ark. I need an ark to get through this. And as resistant as I had been to people's silly suggestion that I build an ark, I suddenly knew that building an ark was mine to do. Now, those of you who, like me, grew up learning stories from the Old Testament, you know the story of Noah's Ark. And I'm not going to attempt to make you believe that I'm busy building a boat that is 300 cubits by 50 cubits and 30 cubits high that will house me and 7 people. But that would be a really good reality TV show. Todd's Ark. Who will survive the flood? So instead of literally building an ark, I decided I needed to explore the story of Noah from a metaphysical perspective. What can the biblical story of Noah teach us about the expansion of consciousness? First, I want to acknowledge that the story of Noah is told from a primitive consciousness. It is the story of an angry God that destroys his creation, except for Noah. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 9, it reads, Noah was a righteous man. Blameless in his generation, Noah walked with God. Scripture tells us that this is an angry Old Testament God who is washing away his creation because of the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. Now, here at Unity, we don't believe in that angry God. We believe that we each carry a divine spark within us. And we call that spark the Christ. And this is important. The divine within us does act to obliterate such thinking. Error thinking. That thinking which would have us believe that we are separate from one another. Thinking that would have us believe that we are separate from the loving presence which is God. Calls us at a soul level to right action and to prayer and to meditation. And we could go through the entire narrative of Noah line by line and dig out deeper meaning than the literal account of the flood. And that would tie us up for weeks. Instead, this morning, I just want to focus on a few key points. And I believe these parts of the story of Noah are directives for us regarding the practice of faith, the promise of renewal, and the importance of gratitude. In the revealing word, Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, defines an ark as a holy place, a sanctuary, a tabernacle, the Christ center wherein man is one with pure being. An ark is a holy place. It is the Christ center wherein you are connected to pure being. Noah's ark symbolizes the spiritual part of oneself built in the midst of the flood of error. You build your ark on the scientific understanding of the wisdom, the presence, and the power of God, and on the affirmations of what you are in spirit. You got that? You build your ark on the scientific understanding of the wisdom, the presence, and the power of God, on the affirmations of what you are in spirit. The name Noah, according to the Anchor Bible Dictionary, means to rest, settle down, repose. The Metaphysical Bible Dictionary expounds on this idea. The Noah of Genesis was the son of Lamech. Now, Lamech means a strong young man and signifies the strength of youth. And Noah means rest. Thus, in the strength of our youth, we idolize the material and attach our spiritual enthusiasm to the things of this physical world. But the law of reaction sets in. Noah, rest, finds favor in the eyes of Jehovah. If in the strength of your youth you have indulged in the things of the physical, the law of spiritual equilibrium, the Lord Jehovah is now working itself out in a rest. And you may have bodily ills. This is where the consciousness of wicked thought drowns and our earth is cleansed. Based on these interpretations, here is one way we can experience the story of Noah as relevant in our lives today. Storms are going to happen. Big storms that may feel like everything will be destroyed in their wake. And that destruction only takes place here in the physical level. The place where we parade around in our skin bags. In the truth of who we are, we can always rest in the wisdom and in the power and in the presence of God. I want to repeat that. In the truth of who we are, we can always rest in the wisdom and in the power and in the presence of the divine. Your ark is a holy place. It is your cradle of the indwelling Christ. It is truly a practice of faith to dwell here in your ark. We are adrift in a sea of potentiality. We are even now surrounded by the ocean of the divine. Don't be that fish that is looking for water everywhere. The water surrounds you. Rest in the truth that there is only one presence, and it is everywhere equally present, and abundance is the nature of God. We have the opportunity every day to experience the kingdom of heaven. We can experience renewal every day by tending to our ark. So what do we do while we're dwelling in our ark, and what does it mean to tend to the ark? Well, if you follow Noah's example, we take 2 of every living creature with us, and 7 pairs if they are clean. I believe this 2 by 2 means that we take with us every idea about being, both the negative and the positive. And we take with us our divine ideas, as represented by 7 pairs. And in our ark, we tend to these ideas and we hold them in consciousness and we allow them to be transformed by truth. They are transformed by the indwelling Christ. And in turn, we are transformed and our consciousness expands. Tending to these ideas becomes the activity of gratitude. And gratitude is the practice of experiencing it's all good. And the relative good things happen every day, and bad things happen every day. And with the right perspective, we see in absolute truth, things just happen. And no matter how we feel about them, that love is always present, and that indeed, love is all there is. We find and hold that right perspective by allowing our consciousness to dwell in the ark, no matter the stormy flood we may encounter. So I'm working on my ark, and it became very clear to me that flash floods are a small inconvenience. Nothing should rob me of the peace and the joy and the indescribable love I know when I am experiencing oneness. I've experienced that oneness on occasion. And my hope is that I can settle down into my ark and more frequently experience that oneness. And I hope you can settle down and rest in your ark and experience that oneness that is the truth of who you are. And as for my backyard, I'm a little jealous that God gave Noah a 7-day warning. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. And all I get is an annoying ringtone on my smartphone. But the metaphysical meaning here is profound. 7 means spiritual perfection. Water represents unexpressed capacity. And 40 days and 40 nights, that means as long as it takes. For in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights means when there is spiritual perfection, abundance will flow to us for as long as it takes. When there is spiritual perfection, abundance will flow to us for as long as it takes. For me, that's an appealing promise. Because in the heart of the divine, we are seen as perfection in potential. And I believe that abundance is flowing to us even now. And one final admission, I get that there's a great paradox in cultivating a spiritual practice while still attending to the mundane physical world. And lest any of you think I've merely been sitting around meditating about my oneness and turning a blind eye to the very real storms here in the physical world. Do not. I am also a fan of Jesus asking, do you want to be made well? Stand up. Take up your bed and walk. In other words, do something about it. So for now, with the help of my friends Richard and Tony, there's a trench that goes through my backyard and it channels water away from my house. So, I no longer worry when it's going to be raining. And I do have a more permanent solution scheduled. But this allows me to spend more time in my ark on important matters. Matters like changing my thoughts and contemplating big ideas. Like feeling gratitude and knowing that no matter what, it's all good. So that I can spend time experiencing oneness. And friends, that's all I've got for you today. This afternoon, I hope you take some time to tend to your ark. That holy place where the Christ lives in you. Practice some gratitude. Seek out an experience of oneness. It's the truth of who you are. Maybe you'll think up some big ideas. Rich would have you write those down. And me, when I get done with our affirmation talk, even if the creek does rise, I'm going to go have a nap.